Okay, Simon, the doors are open and the people are flooding in. Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us today. It's another excellent attended webinar. I feel like I say this every single time at the moment, but this is probably one of our most well attended webinars that we've got, and I think that's testament to obviously the speaker that we've got today, the subjects that we're going to be covering. And yeah, I'm delighted, Simon, that you've taken the time to come speak to us today. Obviously, Simon and I have known each other for quite a few years now. I've always admired, obviously, the work you've done with the Accountants Mastermind group, and I know that the users do, and the people within the group also really respect your advice that you give, because of course you've been there, you do it every day with Greenstones as well. So Simon, thanks very much for myself for coming and taking time to speak to the audience today. What we're going to be hearing from you?
Well, we're going to talk about how you get records from your client on time every time. And I know that's a big promise and we might fall short of every time. But if you just take 1, 2, or 3 of the 14 different ideas that I'm going to share with you this morning, then I know that it will vastly improve the time that you spend chasing people for the information that you want from them.
Excellent. Thanks, Simon. So just as a bit of housekeeping, just before we get going, we're not expecting any fire alarms. The exits we're in your own office. But if you do want to submit a question, please use the Q&A box below. Simon's happy to take questions on the fly as we go. So I'll monitor the Q&A box, but please do use that as opposed to the chat box. And I will ask Simon at the right time. So for instance, Simon, we've just had a question come straight in from Caroline saying, could you please advise the best can you advise the best, please, to obtain working papers if you don't mind?
I can answer that, and I'm not 100% sure on what you're looking or what you're asking there, Caroline. Yeah. We use Excel working papers, is the long and the short of it. So over the years, we've tried all sorts of different things, and we end up back at Excel. But the more interesting conversation, Caroline, is whether you actually need working papers anymore. So with the way that all of the online technology is going, whether you actually need to keep a record, and obviously if you do the updates and whatnot within the client records, whether you actually need those working papers anymore. But yeah, as an accountancy practice, we still use Excel.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. And that's it, guys. Yeah, if you've got a question, use the chat box and I will chuckle at Simon at the appropriate time. But I suppose, Simon, oh, there we go. We've got another one coming. Oh, Caroline saying thank you. You're very welcome. So Simon, over to you, really. Fire away.
Brilliant. So thank you, Jonathan. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Simon Chaplin. I own an accountancy practice called Greenstones. Over the years, we've won all sorts of awards. I've owned that practice for, 20 years now. 2002, I acquired it. In and around 2010, I got a bit bored with doing accounts and stuff like that. So I retained ownership of that, but extracted myself out of the practice and created it was called something different then, but it was effectively the Accountants Mastermind. So I work to inspire, challenge, and support accountants and their teams to be the very best they want to be. So the ideas and concepts that I am sharing with you today are things that we have used within the accountancy practice in order to help us get their records, get the information in from the clients. And I do honestly feel your pain. I know sometimes it feels like you're banging your head against a brick wall trying to get that information in, when, as I say, 2, 3, 4 of these simple ideas will help you get that information in. And as Jonathan said, I am delighted to take questions. Any questions on anything that I share this morning, I will gladly take those. Anything around running a practice at all, I will gladly answer those as well to the best of my ability. And as I always say, I love stupid questions. So if you've got a question, you think, oh, I can't ask that because it's a bit stupid. I love those stupid questions because generally speaking, they're easier to answer. So if you feel as though you've got a stupid question, please pop them in the Q&A box and I will gladly answer them along with the hard questions if you choose to. So let me share the screen and start with the 14 ideas. So as I said, we're going to look at how do I get records from my clients on time, every time? And as I've already shared with you, we've won over the years all sorts of different awards, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't share with you that I'm a published author and I've written a book called Manage the Bottleneck, and I'll pop that in the chat box so you can go and find that. That's all about how you can create a perfect team and remove you as the bottleneck within your practice. I will also share with you at the end how you can get these 3 resources. So an initial customer contact sheet, which starts the process in order to get the information from the client, 12 top tips to get more referrals, and also 15 recruitment ideas. So without further ado, let's look at how we can implement systems, and it's got to be done. For me, these things need to be done as a process within Accountancy Manager. So there's lots of these ideas, but they need putting in the processes within Accountancy Manager in order to make sure that they get done by your team. But let's have a look at some ideas. So the first one is book appointments. Okay, if you know you need information from a customer, from a client, then book an appointment in their diary. Either book it in the diary for you to speak to them to get the information, or confirm with them when they are bringing the information in. Now, what generally speaking happens within an accountancy practice is, we'll talk about a VAT return, for example. The VAT return quarter ends, and then you either email them or you ring them, hopefully, within 7 days of the quarter end, and you ask the client to bring the information in. And almost certainly the client will say, yeah, I'll do it next week, or I'll get round to it, or they'll give you some fluffy language. Now, when they say, yeah, we'll bring it in next week, or we'll deliver it next week, your response to them should be, okay, on what day? So you're getting some formality to it. So what day? Say Thursday, for argument's sake. And then what time? Okay, 10 o'clock. And then you make the appointment with the client to deliver that information to you at 10 o'clock on Thursday. And if you get a specific day and a specific time, they are much, much more likely to deliver the information to you, either physically deliver it to you or deliver it to you over the phone, than if you just have a waffly conversation and they say, yeah, we'll bring it in next week. And then you ring them up at the end of the following week, and then they say the next week and blah, 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 and they actually deliver it on the 6th of the month following the VAT return, and you have to do it overnight. So the first thing is absolutely, and we're going to come back to this with the last point, you need to take responsibility. So it needs to be your responsibility as to when the customer is delivering the information to you. If you just go fluffy with them and tell them to bring it in whenever, then ultimately they'll bring it in as and when it suits them, rather than you bring it in earlier. So the first one is book appointments. And if you've got regular stuff that's coming up, so every week they're delivering information, or every month they're delivering information for VAT returns or bookkeeping or whatever it is, make sure those appointments go in the diary. So it's 10 o'clock every Monday morning that you speak to ABC Limited in order to get a copy of their bank statements, make sure they've posted all the purchase invoices or whatever it is. So book appointments. Second one, and this seems really obvious when you think about it, okay, is help the customer feel the pain. Okay, now they don't care about air pain. All that people are interested in is their position, the pain that they are experiencing. Okay, so it's no good ringing up a customer and saying, oh, well, if you don't bring the information in, we're going to have to work overtime, or we're going to have to work over Christmas, or we're going to have to work every Saturday in January, or whatever it is. They don't care. Okay, there's no pain in that for them. What you need to do is to communicate the pain that that customer will experience if they don't deliver the information when you want it. Now, there's various ways of doing that. Again, we're going to cover some more in a moment, but the easiest one is if you think about a VAT return. Okay, so we've prepared a VAT return, or we're in the process of preparing a VAT return, and we're missing, say, 4 invoices. Now, it's very easy to ring the client up and say, hello, Mr. Jones, we are missing invoices from ABC Limited on such and such a date, such and such a date, such and such a date, and such a date. Can you let us have those invoices, please? And the client will go, yeah, I'll get round to it. Now, what you haven't done is communicated a deadline in order for them to give you the information, but most importantly, you haven't told them what pain it is that they are going to experience if they don't deliver those invoices to you. Okay, so change the language and say, hello, Mr. Jones, we need the following 4 invoices. And if you don't let me have them by the 22nd of the month, for argument's sake, there is VAT of £2,492 that we will not be able to claim on your behalf. Okay, so tell the client what pain it is that they are going to be experiencing by you. So with absolute clarity, what pain it is that they are going to be experiencing if they don't give you the information when you want the information. So as I say, very simple again. Don't tell them what it is that you want. Tell them what it is that they are going to experience if you don't get it. So help the customer feel the pain. Next up is simply make a note and move on. So you ring the customer. It might be a British Telecom bill, for example, and you know that it's got VAT on, or they have a supplier and the supplier invoices have always got VAT on. You ring the client and say, hello, Mr. Jones, can we have that invoice? And Mr. Jones says, yeah, I've got that invoice. I will send it soon. Yeah. And then all you do is you make a note and move on. You carry on. You file the return. You do the estimate. You put the document in. You claim the VAT, but you confirm that the client can provide you with the information as and when it is that the client wants it. And I know that's one of the systems that most accountants use. So make a note and move on. Next one is to estimate, confirm, and then correct next time. So when we talk about things like VAT, obviously, as accountants, we want to make sure that the returns are accurate and when we file them that they are done properly and all the rest of it. However, you can obviously adjust VAT returns within certain limits. So there's nothing to stop you estimating what the VAT would be on a certain invoice or on a certain collection of invoices, confirming that you've done that to the client, asking the client for the evidence ready for next time, and then file the return and make a note on the system to correct it next time. So estimate what it is. And again, you can do exactly the same within the accounts or the bookkeeping or anything that you're doing. Estimate what it is that you're going to claim, confirm obviously that you've done that to the client, and then correct it next time. So again, a really, really simple one. Next one is just do not do it. Okay, you get, as an accountant, well, as anybody in life, but as an accountant, you get what you tolerate. Okay, so if you tolerate this behavior from your customers, they will continue to do it. So you just don't do the return. You allow them to suffer the pain of the penalties. Now, we're going to talk about in a minute, we're going to talk about automated emails that the accountancy manager can send out. Now, if you send out, again, we'll stick with VAT returns because it's something that happens very often. If on the 1st of the month you send out an email that says your VAT return for the quarter ended such and such is now due, can you please let us have the information? It's not very good, not very strongly worded email, and is all a bit waffly. But if you send that out on the 1st of the month, and then it gets to about the 21st, and you ring the client and say, "Hello, Mr. Client, can we have the records that we asked for on the 1st of the month?" What the client remembers is, well, we had the email, but they didn't really want it until the 22nd of the month. So I've got an extra 3 weeks before I've got to deliver that information, and they're going to ring me up and remind me anyway. So if you want that information on the 7th of the month, you need to be acting on the 7th of the month. And if you're writing to them on the 1st of the month, then you need to make sure that you tell them what it is that you're going to do. So I'll give you an example of a system that we use. We'll email them on the 1st of the month and ask them for the information. If we haven't got that information 7 days later, there'll be another email that goes out. If we haven't got it 14 days later, remember we're on day 14 now, so we're halfway towards the VAT return being filed, we will then ring them. And then 3 days after that, we will confirm by email. If we haven't received the information by the 21st of the month, we cannot guarantee that the VAT return will be filed on the 7th of the month. And the penalty implications of that are X. Now, as soon as you've done that, you can't then backtrack. You've got to say what you mean and mean what you say. Because if you backtrack, then you're teaching them that you don't actually mean your words. Talk about personal tax returns. People have all sorts of issues around tax returns in December and January because the client won't deliver the information, blah, 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 blah. But there's all sorts of challenges around that. One, I don't believe that as a profession, we ask for the information soon enough. So we'll sit there in July and think, well, we really should be asking for the information, but we've got another 7 months yet. So we'll do it next month. We'll do it next month. And before we know, we are in November. And the second thing is we don't give the customer clarity around when we want the information. One of the really simple things that we did is we stopped talking about the 31st of January filing deadline in the initial correspondence until we had to warn the client about the penalties. And this came up, it was a client, I was talking to a client one afternoon, and the client said, well, you don't need the information until the 31st January because that's when the deadline is. No, that's the deadline for the filing. That's not the deadline for the information. And the client didn't understand that. So we removed the 31st of January deadline out of the correspondence, of all the correspondence, right up until we warn them that if they haven't delivered the information by the 31st of October or before, we cannot guarantee that the tax return will be filed on or before the 31st of January. So the only date in all of the correspondence up until the 31st, well, just before the 31st of October, mentions the 31st of October deadline. And the information comes in because they're looking at the 31st of October rather than looking at the 31st of January. And as I say, if you tell somebody that you're going to do that, you're not going to file the accounts or the tax return or the VAT return unless they've given you the information by a certain date. You have to let them suffer the penalty. So from an accounts perspective, we promise to turn accounts around within 45 days of the records being delivered to us. So if the filing deadline is the 31st of October, so the accountants need to submit in their company's house by the 31st of October, if you count back 45 days, whatever that would be, middle of September, we will be writing to them at the end of August and saying, if you haven't got the accounts to us by the middle of September, we cannot guarantee that they'll be filed by the 31st of October. And ultimately, they pay the penalty. Now, what you'll get people moan about it and all the rest of it, and the response is, okay, so what do you want me to do? I can't do any more than what I've already done. I've asked you, I've emailed you, I've rang you up, you've promised me the records, we've booked an appointment, etc., and you've still not delivered the information. How am I supposed to improve this process? Now, ultimately, and we're going to come on to this, there's a question as to whether you want to be working with that client or not going forward, but ultimately, you have to let them suffer the pain because you teach what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate. So just do not do the record. Just do not file them in the first place. Next up, if they are causing you lots of aggravation, then increase the fees. Get paid for the aggravation and the pain that you are suffering because the customer won't give you the information. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this. One is you build in a hassle factor. So the next time that you talk to the customer, you say, okay, you're not delivering the information, blah, blah, blah. And what we're going to do is, because we have to keep chasing you, it makes us less efficient. We're distracting from other clients. So we're going to charge you for the privilege of being having to be chased all the time, and that's going to cost you another £100 a month or £100 a quarter or whatever it is. Now, merely having that conversation with the client almost certainly will go, I didn't realize that was such a big problem. I promise, don't charge me. I promise that I will deliver the information as and when you want it going forward. And then you can say, okay, fair enough. If you're going to change your behavior and you're going to deliver the information when we want it, we won't charge you. But as soon as you fail to deliver the information, then it will just go on the invoice automatically. Is that okay with you? And almost always the customer will go, yeah, because they believe they're going to deliver the information when they say they are. They're not lying to you. They believe that they are. They're good people. So obviously you then have to monitor it. And if they continue to misbehave and not provide the information when you need it, then you obviously need to add that charge to the invoice when it comes through. So increase your fees so you are being rewarded for the pain. The alternative way is to charge the extra. Say, okay, I believe you. Charge the extra. So you raise the invoice, and then when they deliver the information, you issue a credit note because they've provided it. So there's two ways around. There's some psychology that suggests the second way, charging and then giving it back, is more psychologically advantageous to you and the client than it is charging them and then trying to charge them the extra, because obviously they've then got to pay for the extra, and there's all sorts of stuff that goes along with that. So increase the fees so you are rewarded for the pain that you suffer. Next up, custom emails. Again, this is not for everybody, but you set up a custom email for the client. So it's very, very easy to do. On Office 365 or something like that, you can set it up as an alias. So at Greenstones, we would have ABC Limited at greenstones.co.uk. So if anybody emails abclimited@greenstones.co.uk, so ABC Limited is the name of the client, then that email arrives at Greenstones, and it can go either to a central pool or it can go to an individual. So they then receive that information. Now, the way that you can use this is that the customer can give that custom email to their suppliers. So say, for example, you've got a builder and they go to Screwfix a lot. Screwfix, instead of giving the client a paper receipt that the client's then got to scan or make sure it gets to you, the client can obviously give them their email address, so it gets emailed to them and then they have to email it to you. Or alternatively, they can give the Screwfix your custom email address, so it just comes directly to you. And then within your system, we're going to talk about this in a moment, but in your system, you can set up rules so it automatically gets uploaded to Dext or Auto Entry or any of the other systems that you use, HubDoc, in order to process those invoices. So custom email addresses on your system. I don't know quite know how it works with Google, but certainly within Office 365, it's really, really easy in order for you to be able to set those up. You can do it in a matter of seconds. It also helps the customer feel more important to you because they've got their own email address on your server. And it also helps the customer so they don't have to remember who it is that they're sending it to. So I'm sending it to Ida or Jordan or Bev or whoever. Well, I just send it to themselves, basically, abclimited@greenstones.co.uk. So they don't have to remember, and they know that it will get looked after. So there's a question from Ian, Jonathan. I don't know whether are we answering that. You are mute, Jonathan.
Classic. Yes,
Okay.
sorry, Simon. I was just going to say there was a question from Ian on your previous points about increasing fees. Should you write up and issue a new billing contract if you are to increase fees? What's your views on that?
Wholeheartedly, Ian. Yes. So produce it out of Accountancy Manager or wherever it is that you're producing them from, and get them to sign it. However, that's not really the point of that process. The point of have the conversation with the client and tell the client why the relationship is not working and why it's to their benefit to deliver the information to you when you want it. Now, I'll bet you bottom dollar there's two things. One, we moan about clients, we talk about pitters and all the rest of it. The two things that we moan about is one, that they don't deliver the information on time, and they don't return the calls and stuff like that. And then the standard of records. So the records that they produce, they've not reconciled the bank account, or they've not posted invoices or whatever it is. So they don't give us the information, and the records that they provide us with is rubbish. Now, if you sit down with any client, and if they don't behave like this, then for me, there's a question as to whether I want to be working with them or not. But if you sit down with any client and explain that to them, why the information is important and why you need good quality accounting records, they'll turn around and go, oh, I didn't know that my accounting records was rubbish, or I didn't know that I needed to bring the invoices in on time. And you are helping them help you. They want to help you. It's a relationship. Now, there will be clients I know it's the last thing on their mind and they don't want to get to it and they want to put it off because they're not making any money and all that sort of stuff. But if you help and explain to them that this is what we need and this is what the consequences are if you don't deliver it, then almost certainly they'll, as I say, they'll change their behavior and deliver it in the way that you want to. If not, charge them and rebill them, redo a billing invoice, contract of engagement, letter of engagement, etc., etc.
Elliot's jumped in with what he says is a stupid question. I'm not saying it's a stupid question. It says, how do you set up the custom emails?
So for me, and it's not a stupid question, for me, I've got administration rights within Office 365, and they're called aliases. And you just go into Office 365, or one of my team members goes into Office 365, and you set up the alias. Some of the systems call them forwarders, and it just says ABC Limited at greenstones.co.uk, and then in the box to the right of it, you just say advice at Greenstones, or Tracy at Greenstones, or Ida at Greenstones. You just say where it's going to go. Jonathan, from a technology point of view, I'm perhaps landing you in it there, but from a technology point of view, I'd imagine you perhaps know more about that than what I do. But it for me, it's very simple.
Yeah, I was just thinking, obviously, it'd be a great one for our support team, to be honest with you. So if AM users are kind of looking at doing this and how they want to try and integrate it within AM, talk to support team. They're always available. Don't charge anything for their time, and they'll be able to assist you with that.
Yeah, it's not. It takes very little time to do it. And I'm going to give you another one in a minute about email rules, which is generally speaking what clients want to do and the way they do it, because it catches lots of different things. So that the challenge with a custom email, when it works, it works. The difficulty you've got is you've got to get the client to go in and speak to the right person at Screwfix and all the other suppliers that they're using in order to get that changed. And there's a whole world of stuff within that. However, once it's done forever. So there's a bit of pain, short-term pain, long-term gain type scenario. That's brilliant. Thank you for the questions that we've already had. So next up, as I say, is get them to automate it. So there's no rocket science in this at all. You get them to upload it to Dext, up to Receipt Bank, or any of the other vendors, auto entry or whatever. I know Receipt Bank and Dext are the same people, but upload it to them so they don't have to provide the information to you. Now, I'm going to share a little story with you. So we had a bit of a challenge within our office to start with, in order to get people, my team members, to get their customers to use the invoice processing system. And there was all this about, oh, the customers don't want to do it, the clients don't want to do it, and it's too much aggravation for them, etc., etc. And then one afternoon, a chap called Mick, who was, let's just say, one of our more interesting customers. He came into the office. He used to come into the office reasonably regularly to deliver piles of greasy receipts. Excuse me. And he also smoked, so they smelt of cigarette smoke as well. So there was greasy and smoky, and lots of the team members didn't want to go and have that conversation. So I'd had a conversation with him about getting him to upload it. Oh no, Mick can't do that. He can't even work a mobile telephone, that alone. Upload it to auto entry and all those sort of things. So anyway, one afternoon, Mick came in. I went into the informal meeting room with Mick, sat down and had a bit of a chat. And then I said to Mick, can you take a photograph on your phone? And Mick said, of course I can. And he got his phone out. He said, why do you ask? I said, so what we're going to do going forward, if you want, is just take a photograph of these invoices so you don't have to come in anymore. And Mick said, it's as simple as that. He said, I'll just take a photograph and then I haven't got to keep coming in every week and I can spend that time earning money. And I said, yeah, but instead of using your camera on your phone, you're just going to use a different app. Should we download it? So we downloaded it. And then all of a sudden, Mick had the app on his phone. And now all he does is just take photographs of the receipt. So if he's in the petrol station or wherever he is, takes a photograph and uploads it to, in our case, we use auto entry. So just merely sitting down with the customer for 3 minutes, explaining to him how easy it is to do it. He then did it. And there was like this blinding flash within the office. It was like, well, if Mick can do it, anybody can do it. And it was just, as I say, just a really simple thing. So we will sit there and we'll ask, what's the challenge? Can we help the customer understand it and work with it? And as I say, in Mick's case, once we'd got that sorted, away they went.
Simon, Adam's just jumped in. He just wants to know, really, what does your informal meeting room look like?
So we have in our informal meeting room, there's a bit of a story to it. We're on an industrial estate, and it's the usual situation where people walk in and they walk into a foyer. I didn't want a team member out there all the time on their own, and I didn't want people to be stood out there having meetings in. It's not a public environment because it's our office, but it's cold, it's quite tiled floor, etc., etc. So we have 4 meeting rooms within the office, one of which is an informal meeting room, which you can't book. And basically you go in, there's some soft chairs in there. There's a little table, some water and various other, some sweets and various other different things. So if anybody comes in and they've not got an appointment, then they're taken through into the informal meeting room, asked if they want a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever, and away we go. So it's not any rocket science or anything like that within that, but it's just a place where we know that we can take a client that will be comfortable and they will be obviously have the confidential aspect of it as well. they got any other questions on that, Adam, I will gladly answer them. So yeah, get them to automate the invoices and the information. If you can't get them to connect Xero, so this seems a little bit strange to me because it's an obvious thing to say, but I know that lots of customers have a problem doing the bank feeds in Xero because they press it in Xero and it takes them off to Barclays or wherever it is, and then they have to put the authorization in, and then they have to sync it, give it permission, and then it goes back, and it's all a bit complicated. But there's a couple of systems out there, Analytics and Stream Connect, that enables you to do that on your phone as well now. And I know it's still flipping over 90 days and all that sort of stuff, so you have to continually do it. But there are systems that are better than the systems that are built into Xero in order to get your clients to set up the bank feeds. And they can also, obviously, if you haven't got somebody that's on Xero, in those scenarios, you can get the information by them sending you a CSV of the bank statements, so you don't have to retype or get PDFs of the bank statements. So you can use Excel spreadsheets and all the rest of it. So again, there's two really, Analytics and Stream Connect, really, really useful for getting information from customers that are less technology savvy than the people that can tick the buttons on Xero. So the next one that I'm going to share with you is email rules. So get the customer, or you via Zoom or any of the technology that you've got, you go onto their system and create rules in their Outlook or whatever email client that it uses in order for them to send information to you automatically. So a couple of examples of how we use this. You can put up in the subject line, if it contains the word invoice, then that email is automatically forwarded to Greenstones. If it contains the word receipt, for example, it can automatically be forwarded to Greenstones. If you've got a client that can't get a supplier to change the email that's coming to them with the invoice, then they can set up a rule that says all emails from ABC Limited or Screwfix or whoever it is, they get forwarded to Greenstones as well. So it's a bit clunky, that one is, compared to all the others. But if you can't do it for whatever reason, or the client can't do it for any reason, then it's a bit of a fallback, a bit of a stop safe in order to enable them to send it to you. And obviously from your end, you can also do the same. So if you've got emails coming in to you and you can't get the client to send it direct to auto entry or any of the systems, if you've got them coming into you and you know they need forwarding, then you just create an email rule to do that for you automatically.
Simon, you've touched on something here, and we had a couple of questions come in. Firstly, can you supply more information about the systems to reconnect the bank feeds in Xero? Gal's having real issues with this.
Okay, Gal. So there's two that I know of predominantly in the market. There's an organization called Stream Connect, and there is another one called Analytics. If you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/socksupsimon, and I'll sort that out and post it in the chat box in a little while if Jonathan can't find it. But if you go to the YouTube channel, there's demonstrations from both of those organizations, so Analytics and Stream Connect, and it will talk you through the process. And as I say, you know, when you log on your phone, it does your face activation, so they can authorize access via their face and their PIN number rather than having to do it over a web browser. So both of those, and neither of them need an app as far as I remember. They just work through, so you don't have to download anything. It just works through the banking app that's on the phone.
And secondly, is there a way of getting Xero to send an automatic reminder to clients about relinking their bank account before the 90 days is up to avoid any gaps in their Xero accounts?
I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine if you go into Practice HQ or something like that, there may well be. However, I am anti-automated reminders unless they are done properly. So we'll touch on this now because it's something I'm going to talk about in a moment. But you know what it's like if you constantly get an automated email from a supplier or somebody that you've used from a customer that that is exactly the same every time. You blind it out. just don't see it anymore. It's a bit like a picture on a wall, or when you go drive down a particular road. If you see it all of the time, your brain just filters it out because it's not relevant. So if you're sending automated emails, something needs to happen in those emails in order to catch people's attention. As you know, you're getting loads of emails in your inbox, and if it isn't, it soon disappears off the bottom of the list. And if it isn't top of the list of things to do, and I can assure you, reconnecting a bank fee to zero via Barclays Bank app or whatever it is not top of the list of things that your client want to do. It just disappears. So if you're sending automated emails, whether it be through Xero or through Accountancy Manager, you need to change them regularly. So the language is different and as proactive as the language could be, and you need to do something to catch the person's attention. And the easiest way to do that is to change the subject line. So when the email arrives, it's the first thing that you can see. And you can do that with the words, and you can stick emojis in it. You can stick the customer's first name in it, something like that. So if you've got an automated email that goes out every quarter, in order to ask the client for the VAT return information, you need to have a note on a system somewhere within Accountancy Manager to say, update that once a quarter. If it goes out once a month, you need to update it every month. So it feels different. Even if it says, hello, we're at Easter already, and it's time to file your VAT return, or hello, Merry Christmas, or whatever. Hello, have you been on your holidays yet? So something that engages the client to get them to think about it and respond as best they can to you. So I'm not saying don't use auto-generated emails, because they're a fantastic time-saving thing. You just need to be, you can't just do it and forget about it. You need to be improving it all of the time.
I think that kind of covers off Barnaby's point where it says, do you use Accountants Mastermind for automatic reminders? Obviously, lots of users do, and Simon can try and give us some advice about trying to make those even better than what they already are. Yeah,
definitely, wholeheartedly. The automated reminders within them is I am definitely in favour of them. Changing them, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the language in a moment, but changing them so they are unique or more unique. So it prompts the brain to look at it from a customer perspective and do something about it. And then ultimately you need to be on the telephone. So if they're not delivering the information, but you need to have clarity over what it is that you are going to do. Another really, really simple thing to do, and it amazes me how many people don't do this. You speak to one of your team, and the team say, "Oh, I can't get this information out of Brian," and the client will go, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And the team member will say, "Well, I didn't know I needed to tell you that I couldn't get the information out of Brian." It's like, okay, so we have an escalation process. Yeah, so I talked to you earlier about 7 days for an email, 14 days for an email, 3 days later for a telephone call, 21 days for an email. If it's not at that 21 days and they're an A-grade customer, yeah, does that need to be escalated to a customer manager in order to have the conversation with the client to make sure the information is delivered? Yeah. So what happens if it's not working? When is it escalated up the hierarchy, for want of a better phrase, the people that have got closer contact with the client in order for them to take action? So yeah, wholeheartedly do that. The next one, which is a bit scary for lots of people, is sack 'em. Okay. Now, we'll go back to the conversation that I had a moment ago about communicating with the client about what the problem is before you get to this stage. So for me, we have always had the conversation. Client says that they're going to change it. We then increase the fee if they don't change it. And if it continues or they keep moaning about the fee, then we tell them that we don't want to work with them anymore. Now, as soon as you tell somebody that you don't want to work with them anymore, it's like rejecting a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. It's like people don't like that rejection. They don't like to think that they've done a disservice to somebody else. And this is all about fairness. Okay. Now, we have conversations, and it's changed slightly over the last few years, but we used to have conversations with 12 customers a year. So the team used to work out who it was that was causing them the most aggravation. And we used to identify 12 customers. And then every month we'd have a conversation with one of them about why and how the relationship wasn't working. And as I said a moment ago, it's like this moment where the customer goes, oh, I didn't know that I needed to deliver the information. I will make sure that I do that. Or I didn't know that I needed to sign those tax, that VAT return, or sign the accounts, or whatever. Or I didn't know that I needed to post a wages journal or reconcile the wages journal. And as soon as you communicate it with them, then they want to do it. But the ultimate is you sacking them. Okay, saying that you don't want to work with them anymore. Now, I know that provokes all sorts of emotional responses in lots of it. It's like, well, that client's worth £3,000 a year, for example. I can't let that client go. It's one of my biggest clients. Now, whilst you're working with that mindset, the client has control of the relationship. Okay, so the person, and this is all a negotiation, the person that's strongest in any negotiation has the best plan B. And if you are letting the customer, you are tolerating the customer's behavior, what you're saying to yourself is you're not worth it. And your plan B is weaker than the customer's, because you believe that customer can go and get the service that they're getting from you from any other accountant, which is rubbish, because you're unique. You deliver the service in a way that's unique to you. It might be the same service, but the way you deliver the service is unique to you. So the customer doesn't want to go, but if they do want to go because they've been a pain in the bum to you, then let them go. And I know every single time that I have this conversation with a client, there's that fear of replacing the income. But when the clients had the accountants had the conversation with the client, and the client's gone, ultimately something else comes along to fill that GRF gap that client, the accountant, has suffered by letting that client go. And we have let some big greenstones. We let her second biggest client go many years ago, and financially we never even knew that we'd let that client go because it was replaced by other work that was coming in. I'm not saying that's easy, and it was scary at the time. It was a significant number for us as a practice. But as I say, I've lost count of the times that I've had that conversation. You need to believe in yourself that you are as good as what you are. So if it's not working, let them go. Free yourself up to do more valuable work. Next up is text messages. And I know you've got this within Accountancy Manager. Text messages get a far better response than what emails do, but you need to use them, I won't say sparingly, but you can easily upset a customer if you send too many text messages, because text messages on a phone, they tend to be personal. I know you get surveys and stuff like that from different people now when you've been speaking to them, but text messages tend to be more personal, and therefore you need to use them sparingly. But if you send a text message to a customer, they are much more likely to respond to it almost instantly than what they are if they've got an email and it's sat on the desk or whatever. You just need to, as I say, you just need to use it more sparingly. Now, one of the things that you can do is set up a text message in order to chase the customer repeatedly. So you've sent them a tax return, for example, you need that tax return to be signed. So you can set up a text message to chase them every day or every 3 days until they've returned that return. Now, you'll get one or two things. They'll either sign the return, or at some point they'll ring you up and say, Simon, will you stop sending me these text messages? I'm fed up with sending them text messages. And then your reply can be, yeah, I'll stop sending them as soon as you sign that tax return that we want back, please. Send them back, and I'll stop sending the text messages. Now, in the good old days when we had P35s, and we'd obviously got a timescale that we needed to get them filed by, we had text messages going out daily and emails going out daily from the automated system in order to get them to sign the P35 so we could submit the P35. And we had a number of conversations with customers that were upset about the number of reminders, but everybody saw the clarity when we explained to them, just sign the return, we can file it, we can all go to bed, and we'll all be happy.
Simon wants, yeah, I was just going to say, a question's just jumped in about using WhatsApp instead of text messages. Some clients insist on using WhatsApp because it's free. What's your experience of using WhatsApp in business?
We use WhatsApp a lot, and I really like WhatsApp. I'm a massive fan of WhatsApp. I'm amazed at how many people don't know the functionality of WhatsApp and being able to transmit documents and all the rest of it. However, a text message to the text message system on your phone, it's more more personal, and now WhatsApp and all the rest of it's taken off. People get very, very few text messages. I get hardly any text messages. So if I get a text message, it's like, oh, who sent me a text? Who sent me a text message? So in my experience, text messages get a better response than WhatsApp. But if that's what your clients are telling you, definitely go to WhatsApp. And if it's working for you, then carry on doing what you're doing. If you're getting a response on WhatsApp, carry on doing it. Don't change it if it's working. If it's not working, experiment and play with something else. Okay, so that's text messages. Again, we're getting towards the end there. A really, really simple one. And again, it makes stupid sense to me. But tell the customer that they can take pictures. Okay, so they don't have to take a picture and upload it to auto entry. They don't have to come into the office with the invoice. They don't have to email it to you. They don't have to print them out or any of that sort of stuff. All they need to do is take a picture and either WhatsApp it to you or text message it to you or email it to you, whatever it is that they want to do. But explain to them that you don't need the original. It's like some people, and we are digitalized, but we've still got customers that didn't know that we don't need the physical copy of the invoice because nobody's ever told them. And it's like, we'll have team members sit in the office moaning about the fact that Dave is still bringing in invoices. But have we ever told Dave that we don't need the invoices anymore? We don't need boxes and boxes of stuff. Just take pictures of what it is that we want. The second point to this is how we communicate what we want to the client. Now, a classic example of this for us is the authentication codes. When we're onboarding a client, obviously we request authentication codes that go to the client. The client needs to give us the code so we can put the code into the system to connect all the loops. And we was having great difficulty getting those authentication codes back from the client. And ultimately, as you know, if you don't get them back within 7 days, the code's out of date and you have to go through the process again. All we did was take a photograph of what the authentication code packet looked like, blanked out the client's details on that authentication code. And then when we send the email out asking the client, so the email says, hello, we've requested an authentication code for you. It should arrive within the next 2 or 3 days. As soon as you've got it, can you let us have it? All we did is in the email, we put the picture and it says, you should get an authentication code in the next 2 or 3 days. It will look like this. Please let us have it straight away because the code expires. And just putting in the picture of what it looked like massively increase the response rate. So we very, very rarely now have to chase somebody for an authentication code on day 6 because they know what it looks. So what can you do to give even more clarity to your customers about what it is that you want? It's easy for you to say, oh, I need a bank statement or I need a hire purchase agreement or whatever it is, but they are not. Their language, not always, but lots of the customers that we work with, their language is not the same as ours. We talk technical because we don't know that it's technical to the customer. So can you demonstrate to them, take a photograph of them, give them an example of what it is that you look like, you want? And taking pictures is a fantastic way of doing that, both from them and for you going out to them. Last but not least, is mind your language. Okay, so language is very, very, very important. And the way that you use the language tells the client lots of things about how and what it is that you need. So if you're ringing a client and say something along the lines of, hello, Mr. Jones, we're missing 4 invoices. When you get around to it, can you let us have them? That's obviously, it's really, really rubbish language. If you get a chance, can you send us the invoice? Absolutely. Rubbish language. There's 2 in particular that people use in business that are incredibly weak. The first one is try. So can you try and do that for us? Well, try automatically implies failure. So you can't try and do something. You go to Star Wars and listen to Yoda, you either do it or you don't do it. If you use the word try, then it automatically implies failure and the client is less likely to do it. So stop your tries, your shoulds, your coulds, your woulds, your ifs, all of that flowery language, and tell the customer what it is that you want. Mean what you say and say what you mean. The second one is people say things like, don't forget. Okay. Now, the brain has real difficulty processing negatives. So if you use the words don't forget, the brain puts aside the don't and only hears the forget. So if you write, don't forget it's your VAT quarter year end or VAT quarter end, please let us have the information, your brain's gone, oh, forget it's the quarter year end, blah, 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 and fails to deliver it. So instead of using the negative language of don't forget, change those words to please remember. Okay, so instead of don't forget, use please remember. Please remember to deliver the information for the quarter ended. Yeah, and you will see it's very, very subtle, but you will see an improved response to your communication just by working in the positive rather than the negative. So have clarity over what it is that you want, when you want it by, and the consequences of what happens if you've not got that information delivered by whatever date that it is that you want. So be very careful, and that's verbally as you're talking to the customer, and definitely in the auto mails that are going out from the system. So please remember and get rid of all if, should, could, would, tries, etc., etc. And then the last one that I've got to share with you is to take responsibility. So it is our responsibility. We are delivering the service to our customers, and it is our responsibility to serve them to the best of our ability. And if the customer is not doing what it is that we want to do, then it's our responsibility to help them change, educate them, or whatever it is that you need to do in order for them to do what you want to do. So communication, any communication that we deliver, is only as good as the response it elicits. So if it's eliciting a rubbish response, change your communication. Don't sit there on a Friday night with a glass of wine moaning that this is happening and that's happening. Moaning on a Sunday in January because you're having to work 7 days a week until 10 o'clock at night in order to file all the tax returns. That's not the customer's problem. That's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility to improve your communication and get the information when you want it, or decide to stop working with that client. Now, if you're going to prostitute yourself because of the fees and you want to work late at night and all the rest of it, and that's your justification, fair enough, but shut up and put up. That's your decision. You've decided to do that. Now, the last thing I want to say about taking responsibility is making sure you confirm with the customer what the next step is. So if we're ringing the customer on day 14 and saying, hello, we really need your information by the 21st of the month, you need to tell them what you are going to do if that information isn't delivered by the 21st of the month. So if you're going to call them again, tell them what's going to happen. So I'll give you a ring in a couple of days. Yeah. If you make an appointment for 10 o'clock on Tuesday for them to deliver their accounting records and they don't deliver it, then you need to be ringing them up at 10:05 on that Tuesday morning and saying to them, hello, you agreed that you was going to deliver the information today. Where are you? And they'll either say, well, I've got stuck in traffic, or, oh no, I forgot. Okay. So when will the accounting records be ready? Thursday. Okay. What time? So it's always all of the process is your responsibility, and you need to take final responsibility in order to make sure that those records are delivered to you at the time when you want to. So they are my 14 different ideas in order to help you get the information from your client whenever you want, on time, every time. And then what I'll do is over in the chat box, I will pop there's the website, as I promised, and the free resources, and also my LinkedIn connection as well. And then if anybody has got any other questions around this or any of the other things, then I will gladly have a conversation with you now, or you can WhatsApp me or LinkedIn me or whatever going forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. What I wanted to do is launch a poll just to follow up really on the session. If you're interested in hearing any further information from Simon at all, if I just launch this poll, it should be a poll on your screen now. If you want to hear from Simon, please do just tick yes, and I'll pass your details over. Simon will be in contact with you. And again, if you're not already an Accountancy Manager user and you're interested in hearing more about our software, again, please tick yes, and again, we'll be in contact with you. So that's, Simon, there's lots of following up to do on the back of this, which is excellent.
I'd love it. So my whole process, Jonathan. So two things. firstly, if you're not an accountancy manager user and you've not got any practice management software at all, then sort yourself out is the long and the short of it. So I talk to people and it's like, well, how do you manage the processes in your practice? How do you know when the VAT returns are due and the et cetera, et cetera? And it's like, well, we don't, or it's all in my head, or Excel spreadsheets. It's like, how on earth do you, it's like you could save so much time using accountancy manager, systemizing the process so it sends the automated stuff that you update and change, get the information in, you know exactly where you are. It's just an absolute no-brainer. So that if you're not on accountancy manager already, then you need to be having a conversation with Jonathan and his team in order to explore those possibilities. You will save, well, massive amount. The return on investment of implementing a piece of software like that properly is huge. Just one word of caution, and again, I talk, and you'll get this a lot, Jonathan. It's like, well, it doesn't work for me. Now, it's not an instant fix. You don't just pay money to Jonathan or pay money to a accountancy manager, and then the following day it's like unicorns and candy floss and all that sort of thing. You need to invest the time in making sure the system works for you. But yeah, that's an absolute no-brainer. And then the second thing from conversations with me, as I said at the beginning, it's all about inspiring, challenging, and supporting you to run the best practices you can. And if I can help you do that, whether you're paying me or not, is irrelevant. Obviously, paying me is a really nice thing, but if you're going to take action and do something with it, I will gladly give my time and help you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Barnaby has answered a question. He says, how is your team structured to pick up client emails? Dedicated bookkeepers or members of staff that have client base and they do bookkeeping and accounts?
So we have the way simple structure, Barnaby, is we have customer managers that predominantly have the relationship with the client, and then we have bookkeepers, what we call accounts in charge, which are people that produce the accounts, statutory accounts and the real-time accounts, and payroll. When we take a customer on, they are introduced to the four different people that they're going to be hearing from in order for us to look after their affairs. So that the different points of contact, the customer has different points of contact. Now, just one thing with that, if you've got lots of team members, people say, well, my customers, then they tell me they don't know who they need to talk to, which is rubbish. So two things. Firstly, you need to communicate more clearly on who it is that they need to talk to. And secondly, if you're introducing a new team member, they need to introduce themselves. And again, it sounds really silly. So you've got junior team members that will be ringing up and going, hello, Mr. Jones, can I have such and such an invoice? And Mr. Jones is sat there going, I don't know who you are. So what you do is you get the team member to ring up and go, hello, Mr. Jones, I'm Jordan. I'm ringing on behalf of Mark, or Mark's asked me to give you a ring, whoever their main contact is. Can we have those 4 invoices? And away they go. But for me, the service that Greenstone's delivered, it's Greenstone's that's delivering the service, not an individual. And as I said, that's one of the core points of the book. You need to remove yourself as the bottleneck, because you've got finite capacity. You've only got 24 hours in a day like me. And if you are the central hub of it, sooner or later, you're going to run out of hours. So it has to go. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. Somebody's asked, does AM charge for text messages, or is this part of the monthly fee? No, that is an additional charge on a credit basis, charged at 5p per text message. You can get bundles of those in the system. Excellent, Simon. We're pretty much at time. I think just a final quick question for me to kind of finish off. It certainly jumped out to me when you was talking about Mick and his sticky records and Dave and his invoices. Those are obviously bad examples of how clients give you information. Have you got some good examples of how clients send the cost information to you?
Oh yeah, we've got people that have got all of that lot set up, so we don't even have to touch it. So the first that we know about it is it arrives in as I say, we use auto entry. So they've got their custom email set up, their forwarding set up. We've got one of our biggest clients. They never see the invoices. It goes directly into AutoMail. We process the invoices, and then they get a statement and they approve which ones they want to be paying. And we act almost like a complete outsourced finance function. So it's all possible. And as I said, my last slide, it's about taking responsibility, and it's very easy for people to turn around and go, well, the clients are rubbish, they're never going to deliver the information. But it's not. It's about you, and you sit there and say, well, okay, well, we'll do it next week. I'm too busy this week. It's going to take me 3 minutes to process that email. I'll do it today. I'll do that invoice today. Whereas if you just spend 5 minutes and have that conversation, next week it might only take you a minute. And it's that minute, 52 weeks of the year, that saves you an hour over the course of the time. So, yeah, I've got umpteen examples where it works really, really well. I mean, we haven't worked a Saturday, done any overtime in January for donkey's years. We had 90% of our tax returns filed by the 30th of November last year. So it's unheard of.
I am going to let everybody go, but I'm going to answer this final question I've just seen coming from Elliot. So he's just asking you, Simon, what sort of team members do you have as bookkeepers? Are they trainees or older people?
I don't know whether I'd class either of them as older people. They're both younger than me, but perhaps they have let's just say they have a number of years experience. They would be early 30s and late 30s. We have got people that do some of the transactional processing that are a lot younger than that. So late teens, early 20s. Whether that, Elliot, is being targeted to whether you can teach an old dog new tricks. Yeah, I don't believe that. So for me, I have a fundamental belief that everybody wants to be developing. Everybody wants to give the best they can. And if somebody is struggling to do that, it's because I've not communicated it in the right way, or they're in the wrong job. So yeah, I don't think the age of an individual makes a great deal of difference as to whether they can do any of this stuff.
Great stuff. Excellent, Simon. Well, I think we've answered everybody's questions that we've had today. I think just a chat box, and I agree with what everyone's saying, that the advice has been excellent, and I think it's really nice to hear practical advice from somebody who's been there and done it, really. So thank you very much for your time and for the advice that you've given the group today. And thanks everyone for attending. It's been another amazing turnout for one of our webinars, so we really appreciate everyone taking time to come and listen to us today. And yeah, apart from that, all that's left to do to wish you all a good afternoon. And yeah, thanks for attending. And Simon, thanks very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you.
So, cheers. See you now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.